Shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, glory, and honor unto Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahushai, Ba'ashem, Rokakadash. Double honors to our apostles and elders of Great Millstone. And peace and salutations to you brothers out there teaching this word in truth and sincerity. This is the Brother Gad. I want to do a quick video on what's about to happen. On what's happening, Salat. As you can see here, this is in Paradise, California. And these are a bunch of Edomites catching judgment. What's that? Somebody's badge. Esau in the rubble, looking for that. Looking for something of value. They're through, man. Okay? And why is that? Well, now because the Most High is judging you so-called white people for what you did to the North American Indians, okay? And I'm going to show you where Paradise, California is. Okay, Paradise, California is right here. This is by this, they call it Butte County. And like, this is the campfire is right up here. As you can see. And the main city is called Chico. Okay. It's a big city there. Orville, you go drive down and you're right next to Sacramento, okay? And that fire is just filling up the bay. Yeah, that's where Esau knows exactly where Jake is at. Yeah, that's where I'm at right there, as you can see. And I can see nothing but smoke outside of my window, you know? So that's how much smoke is around, okay? That's how much destruction happened. I believe the whole town of Paradise was completely wiped out by this fire. And they're trying to find a reason for it, you know, the cause. Okay, and the cause is you so-called white people being the devil the Bible speaks of, right? That's the cause. Okay, because I did some research here on what exactly happened, okay? What exactly happened, and what happened is that you so-called white people stole this land, right? You stole this land from the North American Indians. And this is a really cool, this is from 1915. It says Popular Science Monthly, okay? And this is Save That Digital Assets, UC Berkeley, the last wild tribe of California, okay? And it gives some reference here, but it goes into how the so-called white man is the devil, okay? So it explains here that, I'll just read it. It's such a good article, you know. I'll put it on the description for you brothers, and it shows you that the so-called white man is the devil, okay? I'm going to read it here. This says, the last wild tribe. It says, in the fall of 1908, some attention was aroused in the press by a story to the effect that hunters had encountered in the state of California a wild tribe of Indians who were still in the Stone Age. The idea of a wild tribe in a thickly settled region like California was so novel that it served to awaken a very wide interest. Okay, so the white man thought they killed them all and found a few. Okay, it says, yeah, I'll read it right here. I'll actually read the first. It says the idea of a wild tribe. It said the Indians themselves, however, had meanwhile vanished. Some 3 years later, an individual who had all the appearance of belonging to this group was apprehended in Northern California. All right, that man, his name is I forget the last Yahi, the last Indian. I forget his name. He had a name. Let me look it up. Last. Yeah, the last Yahi Indian. Ishi. His name was Ishi. Okay. I could go on that later, but first. Okay. So they found him. He was put in jail, and a few days later turned over to the university. Since then, so why they put him in jail? The white man just straight put him in jail. Didn't let him live free. Why? Because of the laws at the time said that if you're an Indian, you're. Well, I'm gonna go into it. Since then, he has been received everywhere as the last survivor of his tribe. The whole series of incidents deserves some explanation. I think it ought to be said at the outset that the story as given in the papers of that period is quite true. The individual captured in 1911 was a surviving member of a Stone Age tribe. He is still alive and well at the university. He was given from time to time extremely interesting accounts of the history of his people. And this dude, man, they actually have his brain in a jar over there, man. They dissected his body and all that. This so-called white man's the devil. And of course, they didn't let him reproduce his seed. Here it is. This is the last Indian. You didn't let him go pop some white woman, pop some Mexican woman, some just to push his seed. This white man's the devil. Okay? It says, I should like to explain, first of all, the rather unusual career of this tribe and how they happen to remain wild. The occupation of California by the whites is usually pictured as a peaceful transaction. We hear little of Indian wars in connection with this state. California tribes pursued, as it happened, a more or less settled mode of life. Being non-migratory, they were peculiarly open to attack and reprisal for any resistance they had offered to the white invasion. The influx of whites, moreover, was on the whole so sudden and overwhelming that those Indian disturbances which did occur were soon forgotten. It is quite possible that if California had been settled one family at a time as New England was, massacres and wars would have occurred that would have run down the ages like the wars waged by the Indians on the colonies. If there had been a long course of conflicts, our California tribes might have developed a name for ferocity, like that enjoyed by the Mohawk and the Apache. Right? I'll keep reading. As a matter of fact, the white occupation here was accomplished by violence and bloodshed, and through armed conflict with the natives far and wide. The U.S. Army records show almost as many movements of troops against the Indians as occurred in any other area of the same extent. The whole period of occupation was so short, however, that Indian troubles for the most part were soon things of the past. Yeah, you so-called white people just rolled in there, man, and killed as many Indians as you could. You pushed that many troops through California, and nobody talks about that. It was a purge. So much of the general situation in California, in the wild and rugged part of the state, Indian resistance lasted for a long time. One such area was west of Sacramento in the Siskiyou region, that's way north, along up the rivers, Trinity and Eel rivers. These Indians, they survived, man, and they're known. They straight up believe in this. Bad Indians, right, used to frequent the wilds in this part of the state after the tribal organizations had broken down. And why are they called bad Indians? Yeah, because they didn't want nothing to do with you so-called white people, all right? So they want nothing to do with you so-called white people in your bullshit ass society, all right? And all the wickedness. Hold on, so put on some classical. Okay. It said, in the wild and rugged part of the state, Indian resistance lasted for a long time. One such area, okay, and it says, bad Indians used to frequent the wilds in this part of the state long after the tribal organizations have broken down. Such Indians causes some little trouble to enterprising settlers in the hills. Right, a region where Indian opposition was still more spirited and where Indian disturbances dragged out still longer was up there in northeastern California. Here, the Pitt River Indians and later the Modocs put up a number of very spirited contests, okay, knuckling under. So they were jacking up you Edomites. The whites, on the whole, were very bitter towards wild Indians, even when harmless, and blamed them for everything, from the occurrence of freshets to the presence of potato bugs. It must, of course, be recognized that the occupation of California by whites was inevitable. That's that manifest destiny. The occupation of whites was inevitable. The Indians had to be dispossessed to make room for the New Order. That New World Order this devil put in. The white occupation, however, was not only inevitable, it was relentless. The methods used are not a thing of which we can be proud. This is the Edomite back in 1915. The whites, for example, introduced into California, where it was unknown prior to their coming, the practice of scalping. It was very much the fashion in the early days for white settlers and miners to carry on Indian wars individually and informally. Yeah, individually and informally. You just go around, let's go kill some Indians, you damn devils. Just like how you do with the rest of the tribes, with the Judites. You go, let's go kill some ends. And you go roll into a Jake settlement. Okay, a recently freed settlement. And you just put hell on them, man. You goddamn devils. And it says nothing to be proud of. This is a white man in 1915 speaking. All right. It says the whites, for example, introduced the practice of scalping. Very much fashioned in the early days, white settlers and miners to carry on Indian wars individually and informally. The line between their actions and plain murder is rather hard to draw. Huh, you damn devils. Many of the white loafers and irresponsibles that bummed around the frontier settlements used to preach openly a doctrine of exterminating the Indians. A very considerable proportion of our Indian fighters in this state deserved, in strict justice, to be hung. Yeah, you devils, man. You sick devils. So this man's saying these Edomites that were around killing these Indians that established California, they need to be hung. They were loafers. They were irresponsibles. They were deplorables. Right? The people that voted for Trump, that bummed around the frontier settlements. Yeah, they were bumming around just looking to kill Indians. Coming up. A very considerable proportion of our so-called Indian fighters in the state, and you so-called white people, you would call, yeah, I'm an Indian fighter, I just go around killing Indians. You would have that. It says it may throw some light in general on the nature and methods of these wars to state that there existed in California long after the close of the Civil War a lively traffic in Indian slaves. This is after the Civil War. This is after the end of slavery. You still had Indians in slavery. You goddamn devils. Israelites, so-called Native Americans, so-called black men, so-called Latinos, you still had us in slavery. You still have us in slavery. And you were still trafficking us back then, you damn devils. And this is from the archives of the so-called white men. Let me bring in some scriptures. I'm going to keep reading because it gets better and better, man. Deuteronomy 28:48. And thou shalt serve thine enemies which the Lord shall send against thee in hunger and in thirst and in nakedness and in want of all things. And he shall put a yoke of iron upon thy neck until he have destroyed thee. Yeah, that man, Yahi, the Ishi, he was in want of all things. He was broken down to the point where he was just wandering around. He gave himself up to Esau, knowing that he could get put to death. If you walk up to an Edomite in those days as an Indian, you expect the worst. Expect to be put to death. But they realize that, hey man, this guy looks like one of the last ones. We gotta send him to the university. The Lord shall bring a nation against thee from far, from the end of the earth, as swift as the eagle flieth, a nation whose tongue thou shalt not understand, a nation of fierce countenance, which shall not regard the person of old, nor show favor to the young. He shall eat the fruit of thy cattle and the fruit of thy land, until thou be destroyed, which also shall not leave thee either corn, wine, or oil, or the increase of thine kind, or flocks of thy sheep, until he have destroyed thee, you damn devils. And that's exactly what happened. Okay, that's exactly what was set up to go down. I'm going to read this, okay, because the Yahi tribe, they are right there. This is their land. Paradise. Okay. Where the campfire is. Orville, Chico. And this place right here is called Yahi Trail. You can tell this is where the Yahi live. This is where the Gadites used to live. Okay? And every time there's a golf course, you know Gad was living there, man. This damn devil. Okay. In the northeastern part of the Sac Valley, they lived a nation of Indians who were early driven into a vigorously hostility to the whites. They had already, from their friction with other tribes, developed some adeptness in raiding and thieving in a sort of guerrilla warfare. Right, so they were let me keep going. Right, so this is a little group of Indians over here, right? In the course of their life, these Cananas, they developed intense hatred and fear of the whites. They came to be hunted very much like wild animals. Accordingly, they developed peculiar habits of visiting the valley in sudden forays, escaping instantly to the hills afterwards. These sudden visitations, often resulting in the loss of life as well as property, were a genuine bugbear to homesteaders. On the other hand, the Indians were on their part often harried by famine. Pressure from the whites prevented them from making full use of the natural foods the country afforded. Even acorn gathering was for them a dangerous pursuit, since it gave opportunity for white attack. Their natural means of subsistence, therefore, seemed to have been almost entirely cut off. An idea of their desperation may be gathered from the fact that on at least one occasion, when they attacked the whites and were chased, their plunder consisted of a mule load of vegetables. In other words, they took the field and risked their lives for the sake of a few squashes and some ears of corn. Yeah, man, you devils driven them to starvation. All right, and this is the Mill Creek War. I'm gonna read it. Between the years of 1850 and 1865, this group was more or less under observation by the government. Rumors of battle, murder, and sudden death came frequently from this region to the central authorities in San Francisco and Sacramento. On one or two occasions, attempts were made by the War Department to apply the universal remedy for Indian troubles, removal to a reservation. Details concerning the movement of troops and some very heated correspondence relative to this tribe may be found in the government records. The names of some very distinguished Californians appear in this connection. I recall especially Governor blah blah blah, top Edomites. The only book I know of what such deals exclusively with the events of Yahi region. Okay, here it is. It says, the end of the Mill Creek War was unusual and to some extent tragic. A party of armed whites, acting without other authority than resentment and an inborn savagery, surprised the tribe on the upper waters of Mill Creek in 1865. Their effort apparently was to wipe out this Indian group on the spot. On the admission of men who took part in the action, fire was opened on the defenseless Indians in the early morning, and an uncertain number of them, men, women, and children, shot down. A few, not more than 3 or 4 perhaps, escaped into the brush and got clear. The Mill Creek tribe was a tribe disappeared from history at this time, with 1 or 2 possible exceptions. Nothing was seen of it again for over 35 years. Yeah, that's how you were. That's Mill Creek. Every Indian community, that's what you went and did. You went and killed them. By the millions, man. Okay? So there was a hidden life for survivors. And I could keep going. All right, but brothers, like I said, I'm going to leave it there. Okay? You know, because this is a very good article. It's pretty short. It's only a really good article. Just totally exposing the so-called white man for all the deviltry. The deviltry he be pushing out there, man. Okay? So you want to know why Chico and Paradise are on fire? Because you so-called white people are the devil, okay? And you totally raided, ransacked, and burned down those Indians, the native people. That's their land. That's not your land. You don't belong there. Just like how when you devils moved into, not you devils per se, but you heathen, Okay, when you moved into our our land, the land of Israel, you Hamites, you were getting jacked up by the Heavenly Father. Why? Because you don't belong there. Okay, that's not your land to be hanging out in. I'm gonna wrap it up with this scripture. It says, moreover, the word of the Lord came to Ezekiel 35:1. Moreover, the word of the Lord came to me, saying, Son of man, set thy face against the Mount Seir, and prophesy against it, and say unto it, Thus saith the Lord power, Behold, O Mount Seir, I am against thee, and I will stretch out my hand against thee, and I will make thee most desolate. I will lay thy cities waste, and thou shalt be desolate, and thou shalt know that I am the Lord. Because thou hast had a perpetual hatred, and hast shed the blood of the children of Israel, by the force of the sword in the time of their calamity, in the time that their iniquity had an end. Therefore, as I live, saith the Lord power, I will prepare thee unto blood, and blood shall pursue thee. Sith thou hast not hated blood, even blood shall pursue thee. Thus will I make Mount Seir most desolate, and cut off from it him that passeth out, and him that returneth. And I will fill his mountains with his slain men. In thy hills and in thy valleys and in all thy rivers they shall fall that are slain with the sword. And I will make thee perpetual desolations, and thy cities shall not return, and ye shall know that I am the Lord. And that's beautiful, man. There's desolation over here, okay? And just wait until the real destruction comes, right? The thermonuclear missiles, all right? The race wars. That's pretty much America for you, man. But hey, how'd you get that land? How'd you get in the paradise? Why is it called paradise, man? It don't look like paradise to me. The devils. Yeah, these are the direct descendants of these people, man. Whether you believe it or not. Spiritual descendants of the government that was putting hell on our people. That's a complete desolation. Are you even able to build that back up? The Most High says, ye shall build and I shall throw down. So yeah, I'll put everything in the description. Until next time, I want to give all praises, glory, and honor unto Yahweh, Ba'ashim Yahushai, Ba'ashim Kakadash. Double honors to our apostle elders and great millstone, and peace salutation, you brothers out there teach this word in truth and sincerity. And shalom, and more death, more fire, more destruction upon America is coming. Shalom.